Hey everyone, Cayna here. Today I will be giving you some information regarding my personal opinion on the top 5 melee specs entering the next raid in 9.2. Please be aware that all classes and specs are completely viable and each spec does bring their own strengths. This is solely made from a world first level of progression point of view, and any major class tuning that can happen will make this entire list subject to change. So please don't take the list too seriously, this is just fully my personal opinion. But without any more words, let's get going. At number 5, I put the Red Paladin. Now, Red Paladin has always been in a little bit of a weird spot. Its damage overall is good. It probably isn't the absolute best in the game, but it's definitely good for what it brings. The main strength from Paladins really just comes in from breaking mechanics with all their utility. Blessing of Protection is a extremely powerful CD, and so are very often things like Freedom, Bubble, Lay on Hands, etc. Paladins are just known to bring all of these little tips and tricks that can really just make and break a counter. For example, needing required amounts of bobs on early paysmith progression. Their CD window is also very strong. Wings is a very strong CD, and often just makes Paladins very nice for progression, because in progress, burst is a very big requirement. AoE burst is also there, and generally, Reds are considered a bit of a weak spec, but when a fight is good for a Red Paladin, it very quickly becomes godly. A good Red will also just make sure that all of his utility is used every single time, making sure that Blessing of Protection is used in most encounters, Lay of Hands is used in almost every single pool, and this really just puts aside a weaker Paladin from a very good Paladin player. The main weakness why it doesn't go up higher than number 5 is really just because the melee balance this tier seems a little bit wonky in general. 4 specs just seem extremely powerful in all of their own personal rights, making it just really difficult to enter anything higher than a top 4. All in all though, I would say Red Paladins are more than viable to be brought to any type of progress. They will generally still be incredibly useful, and if you're a good Red Paladin, I will wish you a very happy 9.2 tier. Now, before I go to the top 4, I want to say that in all honesty, you could swap this top 4 around in almost every single way, and it really wouldn't feel so very wrong. Again, this is my personal opinion for top 4. If you disagree, or you want to change something around, let me know in the comments. So, at number 4, I have put the Rogue. Rogues are kings of breaking fights. Between Cloak, Evasion and Feint, they can survive things other melee really just can't. They also bring extremely powerful single target DPS, with strong CDs and 3 viable specs all around. Rogues just do what rogues do best. Kill a boss with all the single target damage while adapting to anything that is needed. AoE, maybe there's different talent and legendary combos available. Worst case, Outlaw still has incredibly potent AoE. Do you need funnel? Is there a lot of ads that you can use to gain lots of boss damage, like Soul Render? Go sub. It will absolutely be one of the highest boss damages that you can achieve in the game. Is it just a good single target fight? Assassination is incredibly good right now, and will absolutely demolish most single target encounters. Basically, the viability of being able to swap around combined with super high single target damage, and all of the little cheesy mechanics that they can deal with Cloak, Evasion and Feint, just means Rogue is just incredibly potent going to 9.2. The sole reason that I actually don't put them personally higher in this list is because they just don't really bring a raid utility like Warriors or Demon Hunters do. They're very selfish spec, and that's honestly the only reason why I don't put them any higher. But if you have 1 or 2 rogues going into your raid team for 9.2, you will not be disappointed with them. Moving on to number 3, Enhancement Shaman. Now, this is my main spec, so I can give you quite detailed explanation to why Enhancement goes actually up to the number 3 list, which is generally pretty unheard of. So, in 9.15, Enhancement is known to be a Wind Fury totem. It mostly just got brought because Warriors and Demon Hunters were incredibly strong and potent. And the Wind Fury totem was just there to buff them. Because of the Wind Fury totem, the other classes would perform better, and Enhancement really didn't do too much. It was quite an average spec in Sanctum of Domination, but the Wind Fury Totem made it worth to mostly just bring one for very early levels of progression, because boss damage was a very big necessity. Now, going into 9.2, Enhancement will no longer be a walking Wind Fury Totem. Entering 9.2, Enhancement has received a huge number of functional and mechanical changes that just make it an outstanding class right now. Enhancement will be gaining about 9% more single target damage by just entering the patch. It also will be getting about 20% more cleave damage and at least 30+% more AoE damage. Especially entering the next patch, Enhancement has just gained huge amounts of flexibility, allowing them to swap talents and legendaries to achieve different types of damage. We can now do single target damage, we can now do funnel damage, and we now also have AoE builds available, which are considerably stronger than what they used to be. Leave aside that the sheer fact right now, Enhancement Shamans, with all of these buffs, have become arguably one of the highest, if not the highest single target damage inside the game, and this is even without considering Wind Fury Totem. Let's say you have a group of 2 Arms Warriors, 1 Rogue and 1 Demon Hunter right now. If you consider the Wind Fury Totem with the actual damage an Enhancement Shaman will be pulling, there's really nothing that's going to be able to compete in terms of boss damage with the Shaman right now. In my eyes right now, 1 Enhancement is basically required for really high levels of competitive progress. But all of this good stuff aside, there are still a couple of downsides to bring in Enhancement. The raid utility is still a speed totem and nothing more. This can easily be brought by Resto Shamans, who are also very strong in this patch, Boomkins, etc. Obviously, speed totem is a bit of a downgrade compared to what a warrior, demon hunter or rogue can bring, in terms of utilities or breaking mechanics or things like rallying cry. All around though, Enhancement is super strong, and I look forward to seeing a lot more guilds bring them for 9.2 raid. Number 2. Demon Hunter. Demon Hunter remains Demon Hunter. It is honestly just a all-around super strong spec. There really just isn't a lot that Demon Hunter does not bring. It's got insane mobility, strong single target, AoE, cleave and burst, a raid-wide CD in darkness, strong personal CDs, extremely strong extended burst, leech to stay alive for practically anything. There just really isn't very much weakness to a Demon Hunter and things it does not bring. The 3 biggest downsides that I can think of as for a Demon Hunter as of now are the following. The initial burst might not be strongest, so if you think of a fight like Sludge Fist where you had like 12 to 15 seconds to really pump as much DPS as you could, it probably wouldn't be the absolute best. It doesn't have any execute damage. Most difficult encounters, they tend to get more difficult towards the end, last 30% of the boss fight. So execute generally is really valuable to speed up this process. Demon Hunter has no execute, which is a little bit of a bummer. And the third weakness really isn't much of a weakness, only when you compare it to the best thing there is that darkness is RNG and a bit static. If there's one big hit, it will still hit most of the people regardless of darkness, and it just really isn't something you can rely on unless there's a lot of small ticking damage. It also is a little bit static, you can't move it around. So compared to things like Rallying Cry, it's definitely worse, but it's still an amazing tool to have, considering melee DPS status right now. All in all, if you bring 1 or 2 Demon Hunters to your roster in the next tier, you will not be disappointed and they will do extremely good for your raid tier. With that in mind though, let's move to the number 1 spec, Warriors. Now, you remember the list of Demon Hunter? With all of their perks? Imagine that's even bigger. Warrior in my eyes is just the perfect melee right now. It's mobile, it is tanky, it has burst, it has cleave, it has AoE, it's got execute, it has a raid-wide CD that's stronger than most healer CDs. It's just flexible all around and I can't really find any weakness in it. Even if its damage would not be the absolute highest in the game, the fact so much of its damage is execute and burst kinda just makes up for that fact. Let alone how tanky it is and the raid-wide CD it has. You just really can't go wrong with fighting warriors, and if your raid team has 2, maybe even 3 warriors, you're just not gonna be sad about it. They work practically amazing on all fights and can adapt to almost whatever scenario they are put in. Even their small little things like spell, block, die by a sword and taunt, or things like even like intervene, they can often be abused on like many little fights for pretty major gains. If you think, for example, Kel'Thuzad, you screw up the intermission, you push it a little bit too early, and there's still Abomination outside, we're now empowered, died by a sword and taunt, and the issue is fixed. You nuke him down in that window, and there's no problem anymore. Warriors are just kings of fixing small little issues that they're really good at. All in all, Warriors just don't really seem to be weak in any regard, and they're an absolute powerhouse going into 9.2 again. Now people, this was my personal top 5 list. Again, remember, this is for 9.2 Mythic Progress and my personal opinion. If you disagree, let me know in the comments what you think and what you would change. Also remember that any tuning can at any point turn this tier list upside down. So don't worry too much about the meta, play what you enjoy. Remember to like, subscribe, and turn on the notifications for any future videos. Again, this was Cayna, and I wish you a good one.